So in the last couple solo episodes, we talked about living a life that is based on our values, lifestyle needs, strengths, interests, and inspirations. Today, we're going to talk about one last method that can help you figure out what your big dream goal could be. If you're still stuck, or you simply want to make sure that you've turned over every single stone, then doing something like looking at our day-to-day activities and tracking which ones turn our dials of energy, motivation, and flow can be really helpful. In JKL interview 15, I had the opportunity to learn from Parker Palmer, renowned education reform leader and author of the book Let Your Life Speak. One of his more popular statements as a thought leader is that we need to make sure we don't do a noble job of living someone else's life. I absolutely love this core belief, the idea that we need to be sure we are living our own life. The reason why this sentiment is so powerful is that it is a filter we can use to ensure vitality and well-being for the rest of our life. If all we do is just follow that Parker Palmer advice. Now, it isn't about hitting one big home run. Figuring all of this out is about taking as many bats as possible and staying patient as we kind of proofread our life. And the best way to be confident that our life isn't plagiarized too much from others, because of course, all creatives and artists steal, we have to, but to make sure that it isn't plagiarized too much, we can track the energy that our personal, individual, day-to-day activities create or drain from us. Now, there are many things that make deciding on a big dream or goal challenging. But even once we've overcome all of the mindset and belief stuff that creates a foundation, and once we are able to think of some interests, two specific things can still get in our way. For one, once we unlock our ability to dream again, we will have too many ideas. Being able to narrow it down actually becomes the new challenge. And secondly, once we have a good idea of the goal, there's no specific roadmap. Sure, we know our final destination, but between now and then, we can't just punch our goal into a GPS and follow the directions. And this is why, for many of us, figuring out our dream is like being a detective on the most challenging case in the world. But like any case that a detective takes, it's well worth the effort that we put into it. We can look at our strengths, interests, inspirations, and values to figure out what we want to do in life. But even when we brainstorm those ideas, we can still feel stuck. If this is the case, or if we just want to make sure we leave no stone unturned, then another way we can find clues is to pay attention to our day-to-day life. By journaling and tracking our lives, we will come across many clues. There will be road signs that help us navigate our next steps. Mel Robbins, creator of Reinvent Your Life, calls them mile markers. And the authors of Design Your Life, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, call them wayfinding clues. No matter what we call them, the sentiment is the same. At any given moment, there is evidence around us about where we are and the direction we should take. Evidence about the turns we should make that are in line with our current meaning and purpose. Some of these signs, and what we're looking at here today, are intrinsic motivation, energy, engagement, and flow. My kids love the movie Moana. In the movie, Maui says, "It's called wayfinding, princess. It's not just sails and knots. It's seeing where you're going in your mind, knowing where you are by knowing where you've been." And now, isn't that just an unbelievable metaphor for life? And it's definitely a great metaphor when it comes to paying attention to personal clues about how to make the best way forward in the unknown based on where we've been. Into the Unknown is another Disney reference. That one wasn't on purpose. But bottom line is, when it comes to searching for clues about the things that we might like to pursue, it can be really helpful to follow the energy of things that we are already doing. I've long heard about the work of Csikszentmihalyi, who defined flow as a mental state of complete absorption in an activity that we should all strive for in our own lives. Now, flow occurs when a person is fully immersed in a way that is challenging but not too difficult to be overly frustrating. During flow, individuals are fully engaged in the present moment and lose track of time, self-consciousness, and other distractions. Csikszentmihalyi says that there are key components to flow. You need to be in control of the activity, have a clear set of goals, immediate feedback, and a balance between challenge and skill. When we get into this state of flow, we feel more joy, fulfillment, and satisfaction. And it also increases our productivity, creativity, well-being, and probably a whole lot more things. It's not necessarily play. I mean, it's fun like play, and perhaps it could be play, but it could exist in almost anything. The activity itself is not what determines flow. Each person has to identify the feeling for themselves when they feel so present in a given moment that they don't even notice the concept of time. So the question becomes, how can we all find ourselves more and more toward this state more and more often? One method to gain more evidence of what brings us vitality is to measure the activities that we do in our day-to-day lives. Every experience that we have will either increase or decrease our energy. And some activities give us intrinsic motivation, whereas others kind of feel like we could pretty much take them or leave them. Ultimately, the goal should be to find the thing that gives us the most energy, intrinsic motivation, and if we're lucky, a state of flow. So take at minimum a few days, weeks, or even up to a month or two to track your activities. At the end of each day, or every so often throughout the day, make a list of the things that you took part in. Then measure how each of them turned what I like to call your dials. We all have activity dials for energy, intrinsic motivation, and we have a switch for flow. Any activity could increase or even decrease our energy. So the dial for energy goes from -10 to +10. We measure the energy gained or lost from each activity. If you measure a 0, then the energy you feel from this activity is smack dab in the middle. If you measure a 10, the energy gained is as high as possible. And if you measure -10, you actually lose a lot of energy from this activity. Some activities give us more intrinsic motivation than others as well. And so we have a dial for intrinsic motivation that goes from 0 to 100. Measure the inherent satisfaction and motivation that you feel when you take part in the activity. If you measure a 0, then you don't care for this activity at all. If you measure 100, then this activity gives you an extremely deep level of satisfaction based on your mission and pure intrinsic motivation rather than some external guaranteed bonuses or perks. Now, flow is a little bit different than energy and intrinsic motivation in that it is binary. Like a switch, it is either on or off. So keep track of any activities that put you in a state of flow. As a reminder, flow is when you lose track of time because you were so completely engaged in the moment without any distractions. If any of the activities that you listed day to day got you in a state of flow for any amount of time, give them an underline, highlight, circle, or check mark to remember that at some point you switched into the state of flow. To recap, we can learn a lot about our possible big dreams by being like a detective. We can search for clues from our strengths, interests, inspirations, values, and lifestyle needs like we talked about in previous episodes, but we can also get hints from tracking our day-to-day activities. What activities crank up our dials? What gives us energy, intrinsic motivation, and flow? As always, JKL community, I just can't say enough how much I appreciate seeing the downloads of this show go up and up and up. It really tells me that, at least in some way, we're starting to make a big difference. Please do pass the show along if you know anyone who may benefit from topics of learning, growth mindset, big dreams, and goal setting. Until the next episode, all the best, and remember, just keep learning.